itself and joined with the very same debt collectors who were set to profit off medical debt to overturn this rule. How did your decision in any way help those tens of millions of Americans, some of whom are watching today, being crushed by nearly $50 billion in medical debt? How was this helpful for them?
Senator, the statute specifically ensures that credit reporting agencies can take into account medical debt. So until you change that statute, we don't have the ability to just regulate however we want to.
Well, you could have tried to narrow the rule, right?
No, we really could not have.
You could have tried to fight it in court.
No, our oath is to the statutes that you have passed to faithfully execute those laws.
You were not able to fight it in court?
What we could just win in court about.
That's not something you could have fought in court.
Not if we have a fundamental disagreement about what the statute requires.
You and I can agree to disagree. I think you chose not to fight it in court, and you joined forces with those debt collectors. A year ago, I, along with nearly 30 of my colleagues, demanded answers from you about this decision. And I request unanimous consent to enter our letter into the record. You never responded. Do you ever respond? Do you ever plan to respond to my letter?
Much of the correspondence that we've gotten has to do with litigation that we're a part of. And so we can't speak and respond to letters of which we're going to have to provide answers in court. And that is a reality that we face. But we do intend to have a very open relationship with Congress, and I'm happy to correspond with you on a regular basis.
Do you ever plan to respond to our letter?
I'm leaving the post on August 1st. So there's a lot of things that hopefully Brian Johnson will be doing, and one of those is those types of correspondence.
Well, you're leaving on August 1st. You've done quite a bit of damage in a few months. We had a simple ask: show your work. Publicly disclose the data and the analysis to justify the CFPB's position that the medical debt rule was unnecessary or unlawful. Since you didn't respond, I'll ask you now, how many Americans were projected to have their medical debt wiped from their credit scores by the CFPB's medical debt rule, which you overturned?
I don't know, but the rule was unlawful.
The answer is 15 million. Medical debt can ruin credit scores, which can make it impossible for folks to ever buy a home. Do you know how many more mortgages consumers would have been able to afford each year if you hadn't overturned the rule?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
So the answer is 22,000. So 22,000 mortgages that consumers would have been able to afford, 15 million Americans who were set to have their medical debt wiped from their credit scores. I've seen this up close in the state of Georgia, and the impact, the real human costs behind the very cold and clinical language about statutory authority, which I think you do have, questions that you could have raised. CFPB, by its nature, is advocating for everyday consumers. And I don't see how any of your actions suggest that you've been advocating for the people that I represent. It seems to me that this shouldn't be a partisan issue. People on both sides of the aisle know that medical emergencies can happen to anybody. They can happen to anyone. We've seen that up close in this very body over the last few weeks. But thanks to you, there are now families who cannot buy a house. They're hounded by debt collectors, and they're denied business loans, all because they got sick. Director Vought, you've spent the last 18 months decimating the CFPB and its consumer protections, and I think families across America will be better off when you're gone. I'd like a response to my letter. Thank you.
Senator. What happens when getting sick doesn't just affect your health, but follows you for years on your credit report? That's exactly the question at the center of a heated Senate hearing that quickly turned into a fierce debate over medical debt, consumer protection, and whether one federal agency is still doing the job it was created to do. This wasn't simply lawmakers asking tough questions. It became a conversation about millions of Americans struggling to recover financially after medical emergencies, and whether Washington is doing enough to protect them. Senator Warnock opened the hearing by asking CFPB Acting Director Rapheal Vought two simple questions. Have you ever experienced a medical emergency? And do you know anyone who has gone into debt because of one? Vought answered yes to both. Those questions set the stage for Warnock's real argument. He pointed to a CFPB rule that would have removed nearly $50 billion in medical debt from the credit reports of millions of Americans. But after Vought took office, the agency reversed course and challenged that rule. Warnock didn't hold back. He argued that families who get sick shouldn't spend years paying the price through damaged credit scores, making it harder to buy a home, qualify for loans, or rebuild their lives. Vought defended the decision, saying the issue wasn't about helping or hurting consumers, it was about following the law. According to him, the CFPB couldn't ignore the limits Congress had placed on the agency's authority. That exchange highlighted a question lawmakers have debated for years. Should federal agencies push the boundaries of the law to protect consumers, or should they wait for Congress to change the law first? The hearing became even more tense when Warnock cited figures showing that around 15 million Americans could have benefited from the rule and that thousands more families might have qualified for mortgages if medical debt had been removed from their credit reports.
Senator Blunt Rochester is actually next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and for holding this hearing on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. When I hear the Bureau's name, the two words that stand out for me are consumers and protection. This agency has brought $21 billion to American consumers. It's been a watchdog. And in a time where people are struggling to make ends meet, it is probably more important now than ever. Director Vought, you said the CFPB is now focused on what you call, quote, actual identifiable consumer harm. And I'd like to see how the standard applies to the people that we in Congress have created the CFPB for. A few of my colleagues have already brought up our veterans and our military families. And last month we had a hearing on housing. We actually had a hearing on affordability. And I raised concerns about military families and the CFPB's role enforcing the Military Lending Act. To me, our financial security is tied to our military readiness. And since 2011, service members from every state and every military base have filed more than 400,000 complaints with the CFPB, which tells me that they believe that the Bureau was somewhere they could turn to when something went wrong. Is the Military Lending Act violation against an active duty service member actual consumer harm by your definition? Like when they actually go through these challenges with, as someone said, whether it's a car dealership or a payday lender?
Yes, of course, and we prioritize it in our guidance.
And you did say that you prioritize it. Can you tell me, since you've been in the position, has the enforcement increased, decreased, or stayed the same?
Well, is it specific in terms of enforcement versus supervision and how
Enforcement.
we deal with
Increase, decrease, or stayed the same?
We take
He's
it
on
very,
a tight time frame.
We take it very seriously.
You said you take it seriously. It's in your humility pledge. Has it increased, decreased, or stayed the same since you've
We
been in
believe
office?
that we have a heightened focus on military.
Can you share the
lending
data
enforcement.
with us to let us know?
Sure.
Okay, because that's what reporting is about. Increase, decrease, or stay the same. Again, you reported it's a priority, but we don't see the results of it. The same is true. I've worked on bipartisan legislation, clean slate legislation, to help people who have returned to their communities. They deserve a second chance. Your CFPB withdrew guidance that was intended to improve the accuracy of background screening reports. Would you consider a person losing a job or an apartment because the background check report includes an expunged record or fails to show charges were dismissed as an example of an actual consumer harm?
We have deprioritized those types of endeavors, which was a hallmark of the previous director.
Okay, so you've deprioritized that. you say that you care about service members, but you don't know how many you've helped or not helped. The
Well, it's
website,
based on the portal, and I'd love to get you follow-up information for it. I'm happy to do that.
She repeatedly asked whether enforcement had increased under Vaught's leadership. His response was that protecting service members remains a priority. Her reply was straightforward. If it's a priority, where's the data? That moment captured the broader theme of the hearing. For many lawmakers, promises alone aren't enough. They want measurable results that show consumer protections are actually reaching the people they're intended to help. This hearing wasn't just about medical debt. It was about something much bigger. How far should government agencies go to protect consumers, and who ultimately pays the price when those protections change? Should agencies have more flexibility